What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So we're taking a look at Remnant 2 on the Steam Deck here today, and I was certainly hoping for a little bit better performance. However, I didn't necessarily expect it. Now, when this game launched, it was not verified, and by the time I was done playing a couple of hours and recording footage, it was verified, which I do find interesting because while the game is technically playable, it's still pretty rough. So let's go ahead and take a look at it here. Now, for me, I did have to force Proton compatibility GE8-9, which is the newest one you can download from your desktop. Doing experimental, not forcing anything for me. The game just would not launch. That could be a me problem. Let me know what's working for you guys. But for me, that's the only way I could get the game to launch today. Now, we are running 4 gigs of VRAM, as I typically am here on the Steam Deck. We're 800p with no VSync on here, 60 FPS. FSR performance is what they default you to, and low settings. Performance looks horrible and barely gains you anything, as it does hit the GPU heavily anyway here. This game's very GPU bound. So I did try some quality just to see how that would go, and man, FSR 1 looks so bad. Even on a smaller screen, it's eye-bleedingly bad how horrible the upscale is for FSR 1. It doesn't matter if your quality, bounced, or performance, it only gets worse, and doesn't help enough with your frame rate. So it's certainly not something that's going to work out great here. Now, this is one of the harder areas to run, as there are other areas of the game I will show you that do run better than this. But just to show you some of the worst case scenario I've run into, this is kind of what we're looking at. Now, going FSR off just for the fun of it, of course you do get much better image quality at 800p, but you're not going to play this game at full native 800p here on the Steam Deck with the frame rate. It's just not going to happen. So let's go ahead and change things over here back to FSR on balanced. Actually, we're going to give that a shot, and image quality is still pretty rough even on balanced, like I said, and you only gain so much when it comes to your frame rate. If I am remembering correctly, FSR 1 does hit the GPU just a bit, as to where Intel's XeSS uses the CPU more, and we will take a look at that later on in the video as well, because I think that's the upscaler we're going to need to use for this game. But running through here with some balanced FSR, you can see that in this particular area it just does not run well. But here in the beginning of the game, if you were playing with these same settings, you would actually think that you were going to have a pretty playable experience, as your frame rate tends to stay in the mid 30s to 40s, which certainly would be a playable experience for this game if you were able to hold that all the time. But unfortunately, you're just not. It really depends on where you're at in the game, and I haven't even gotten into online multiplayer or harder to run areas with more enemies. Now, Intel XeSS, this on performance gives better image quality than FSR 1 by a long shot, and also gives you better performance when it comes to your FPS. This will increase your CPU usage in a lot of areas, which will have its own caveats and problems that I'll show you, as well, as you do see GPU usage drop down and then back up all of a sudden because the CPU getting hit. But overall, it does offer a better, cleaner experience when it comes to your frame times, your frame rate, and image quality. So I do think that if you're going to play this game on your Steam Deck at all, you're going to need to use the Intel XeSS on performance, maybe if you want to drop down the balanced or something. But I think that's going to be the way to go. But even as you get into combat in an area like this, you're still going to be playing down in the 20s when it comes to FPS, and then bounce back up to 30. But this is much better than what I was able to get with just straight FSR quality or performance or balance. So again, the Intel XeSS is definitely going to be a winner here. Now, here's an interesting one. Let's go ahead and go over to like our first dungeon area, actual real dungeon, working on my priority objective, or my primary objective here. In this particular area inside this dungeon, we're actually able to get 30s and 40s with these same settings, 800p low and Intel's XeSS, and get a pretty good experience. This actually is the best the game felt the entire time that I was testing it. So calling the game playable is really kind of dependent where you're at. We're either going to be down in the 20s like we were in that other area, or up in the 30s and 40s like here. Just want you guys to be aware of what you're getting into when it comes to performance here for Remnant 2 before you decide if you want to play it on your Steam Deck or not. It certainly is shaping out to be a fun game that I want to spend some time with, but I'm not too sure how much of that time will be spent here on the Steam Deck. Maybe they can fix up some of this performance, but this being an Unreal 5 game and maxing out the GPU most of the time, I honestly don't think they're going to be able to do a lot to increase performance for this game on the deck. But we'll see as time goes by. All right, guys, thanks a lot for coming to check out the video as always. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one.